I vividly remember the moment I stepped into the family business with a mix of nervous excitement and unwavering determination. It was a crisp Boston morning in September, the kind where summer reluctantly gives way to fall. The Richardson Financial Group headquarters stood tall on State Street, its glass facade reflecting the golden morning light. Even as a young professional fresh out of Northeastern with my finance degree, I knew that our company held immense potential and that I could be a catalyst for its transformation. Dad, Robert Richardson to everyone else, had built the business from scratch after moving here from Connecticut in the late 80s. A small investment firm that had gradually expanded to manage portfolios for some of New England's most established families. Our logo, a simple yet elegant blue shield, had become synonymous with stability and trust in the financial district. "Morning, Ms. Richardson," greeted Marvin, our security guard who'd watched me grow up during my occasional childhood visits to the office. "Ready for your first day?" "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, straightening my blazer and brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. The elevator ride to the 14th floor felt like an ascent into my future. Every corner of the office, every meeting, and every decision filled me with hope. The worn leather chairs in the conference room, the slight squeak of the hardwood floors near the break room, the constant hum of conversation and ringing phones, all of it felt like home, yet simultaneously like uncharted territory waiting to be explored. Sarah, Dad's executive assistant for over 15 years, gave me a knowing smile as she handed me my security badge. "He's waiting for you in his office," she said. "Nervous?" "Terrified," I admitted with a laugh. But in a good way. Dad's office was exactly what you'd expect from a self-made man who valued tradition: dark walnut furniture, shelves lined with leather-bound financial journals, and a massive desk that had belonged to his father. He stood as I entered, his expression a mixture of pride and apprehension. "Emily," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Welcome to the family business." During those formative years, I immersed myself in every aspect of Richardson Financial. I arrived before sunrise and left long after most of the staff had gone home. I studied market trends over hurried lunches at Quincy Market, identified inefficiencies in our operational framework, and embraced innovative strategies that many of our more conservative board members deemed too risky. My brother Michael, 2 years younger and working in our marketing department, often joked that I should install a cot in my office. You know the building has a perfectly functional exit door, right? I've heard rumors some people actually use it before midnight. But I couldn't help myself. My passion for growth was not just about numbers. It was about proving to myself that dedication and hard work could break through the limitations of tradition. I wanted to transform our regional firm into something that could compete with the financial powerhouses in New York. My closest ally was Tom Jenkins, Dad's longtime friend and our chief investment officer. A man in his early 60s with salt and pepper hair and a penchant for colorful bow ties, Tom became my mentor. We spent countless evenings analyzing emerging markets and developing new investment products that could attract a younger clientele. "You've got your father's instincts and twice his energy," Tom told me one night as we reviewed a proposal I'd drafted for expanding into sustainable investments. "But don't forget to breathe occasionally." By the end of my first year, I had already implemented changes that increased our efficiency by nearly 15%. I modernized our client communication systems, revamped our online presence, and initiated a partnership with a promising fintech startup from Cambridge. Dad was hesitant at first, but the results spoke for themselves. My sister Jennifer, Jen as she preferred, watched my dedication from a distance. 5 years younger than me, she was still finishing her business degree at Harvard. During holiday dinners at our family home in Beacon Hill, she'd listen intently as Dad and I discussed company matters, her eyes revealing a mixture of admiration and something I couldn't quite identify. "You're making quite the impression," Mom said to me during one such Christmas dinner as we stood in the kitchen preparing dessert. "Your father talks about your ideas constantly." "Really?" I asked, surprised. Dad was traditionally reserved with his praise. "Really," she confirmed with a warm smile. "Though I do wish you'd make time for something besides work." "What happened to that nice fellow from your alumni association?" "David, wasn't it?" I was driven by an inner fire to make a mark, not just for myself, but for the legacy of our family. I saw Richardson Financial as a canvas on which I could paint a future that honored our past yet pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The old guard, board members like Walter Phelps and Diane Montgomery, who had been with Dad since the beginning, were gradually warming to my vision of expansion. Spring turned to summer, and I found myself leading a team to explore the possibility of opening a second office in Providence. The Massachusetts-Rhode Island corridor was developing rapidly, and I saw an opportunity to capture a market that our competitors were overlooking. I spent weekends driving down to Providence, meeting with potential clients, exploring office spaces, and building relationships with local business leaders. The Providence waterfront became as familiar to me as Boston Harbor, and I could envision our Blue Shield logo reflected in the waters of the Providence River. Little did I know that this journey would soon be marred by unforeseen betrayal and heartache. But in those early days, all I felt was possibility, the exhilarating sense that with enough determination and vision, I could take Richardson Financial to heights that even Dad hadn't imagined. As autumn arrived again, marking my first anniversary with the company, Dad called me into his office. The golden light of late afternoon streamed through the windows, illuminating the family photo on his desk. Dad, Mom, me, Michael, and Jen at our summer house on Cape Cod, all smiles against the backdrop of the Atlantic. "I've been watching you this past year," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You've exceeded my expectations, Emily. And I don't say that lightly." Coming from Dad, this was high praise indeed. "I think it's time we discuss your future here," he continued. "And the future of Richardson Financial." As I sat there, heart pounding with anticipation, I had no idea that the path ahead would be far more complicated than I could have ever imagined. As the years went by, I dedicated myself to understanding every facet of our operations. The expansion to Providence had been just the beginning. By my third year at Richardson Financial, we had offices in Hartford and Portland as well, creating a network across New England that was attracting attention from bigger players in the industry. I worked long hours that blurred the line between weekdays and weekends. My apartment in Back Bay, though expensive, felt more like a place to change clothes than a home. The corner office on the 14th floor with its view of the harbor had become my true residence, complete with a small wardrobe of backup outfits and a premium coffee machine that rivaled those in the finest cafes. "You know, normal people actually sleep sometimes," said my college roommate Caitlin during one of our increasingly rare meetups at Tat Bakery. "When was the last time you took a day off?" I smiled and sipped my latte. "The company doesn't run itself, Kate. The company existed before you started working 80-hour weeks," she countered, concern etched on her face. "And it would survive if you took a vacation." But I couldn't slow down. I absorbed wisdom from seasoned mentors like Tom Jenkins, who taught me to see beyond quarterly reports, and Diana Montgomery, whose instinct for client relations had helped build our reputation. I relentlessly pursued innovative solutions that would differentiate us in an increasingly competitive market. My commitment transformed challenges into opportunities. When the tech bubble caused market jitters, we pivoted to more stable investments that preserved our clients' wealth while others floundered. When a major competitor tried to poach our top advisors with impressive salary packages, I implemented a partnership model that gave them equity stakes instead, tying their futures to ours. Each hurdle served as a stepping stone toward growth that exceeded all expectations. What had been a regional firm valued at around $50 million when I joined was now approaching a $150 million valuation. Magazine profiles started referring to Richardson Financial as the boutique firm with the reach of a giant, and Dad was being invited to speak at national conferences about our innovative approach. The transformation wasn't instantaneous. It was the result of persistent effort and creative problem-solving. Take the Westfield acquisition, for instance. Westfield Asset Management was a smaller firm in Burlington with a stellar research team, but outdated systems and leadership ready to retire. When larger firms showed interest in acquiring them mainly to eliminate competition, I saw a different opportunity. "They don't need to be dismantled," I argued during a tense board meeting. "Their research capabilities could revolutionize our approach to emerging markets." Walter Phelps, still one of our more conservative board members despite years of working together, shook his head. The integration costs alone would eat any benefit, Emily. Not to mention the culture clash. I've spent time with their team, I countered. There's alignment in values if not in methods. And I've crunched the numbers. I distributed a detailed analysis that I'd spent the entire weekend preparing. We'd recoup integration costs within 18 months, and their client base fills gaps in our portfolio. After 3 hours of debate, the board approved my plan with a narrow margin. 6 months later, the Westfield team had not only integrated smoothly, but had helped us secure 3 major institutional clients who had previously been beyond our reach. I took pride in orchestrating projects that not only boosted revenue, but also enhanced our reputation in the market. The Richardson Sustainable Future Fund, which I'd launched against significant internal resistance, had outperformed market averages for 2 consecutive years and attracted a new generation of socially conscious investors. Each successful venture reaffirmed my belief in the power of hard work and visionary leadership. My brother Michael had risen to head of marketing, his creative campaigns perfectly complementing my strategic initiatives. Together, we were reshaping the company's image while honoring its foundations. Mom worried about how much time I spent working, especially after I missed my cousin's wedding for an emergency client situation. Life isn't just about success, Emily, she said during our monthly lunch at her favorite bistro near the public garden. It's about connections. I know, Mom, I assured her, though I wasn't entirely convinced. Success was tangible. It could be measured in growth percentages and client retention rates. The alternative measurements of life, relationships, leisure, even health, seemed frustratingly subjective by comparison. I did try dating occasionally. There was James, a corporate attorney I met during negotiations for the Burlington office lease. We had chemistry and similar drive, but after canceling 3 dates in a row due to work emergencies, I wasn't surprised when he stopped calling. Then came Alex, a tech entrepreneur who understood my schedule, but whose company was acquired by a Silicon Valley giant, leading to his relocation to California. The pattern repeated itself enough times that I began to view relationships as luxuries I couldn't afford while building the company's future. Dad watched my dedication with a mixture of pride and concern. "You're accomplishing in years what took me decades," he told me one evening as we shared a rare nightcap in his office after everyone else had left. "But don't forget to build a life alongside the business." I nodded, not wanting to dismiss his advice, but unable to imagine slowing down. The momentum I'd created felt too important to interrupt. By my 5th year, my influence had grown beyond our immediate operations. I was being invited to join local business councils and speak at industry panels. The Boston Business Journal named me one of their 40 Under 40 Rising Stars, featuring me on the cover with the headline, "The Richardson Revolution: How Emily Richardson is Transforming a Family Legacy." The article detailed how I'd modernized our approach while maintaining the personalized service that had been our hallmark. It quoted clients and employees alike praising my leadership and vision. Dad framed it and hung it in the lobby, a gesture that meant more to me than any formal recognition. Yet, amidst these triumphs, a looming sense of injustice began to form. Not from external sources, competitors respected us and clients trusted us, but from subtle shifts within the family dynamics. During board meetings, I noticed Dad increasingly turning to Jen for input, despite her limited experience since joining the firm after graduation. "She brings a fresh perspective," he explained when I casually mentioned it. Sometimes being too close to operations makes it hard to see the bigger picture. I chalked it up to Dad wanting to make Jen feel included. After all, Michael and I had years of head start in the business. But then came the Boston Harbor project, a massive development where we had the opportunity to become the exclusive financial partner, a deal that would elevate us to national prominence. I had spent months cultivating relationships with the developers, learning their vision, understanding their financial needs. The presentation was scheduled for Monday, and I had spent the entire weekend perfecting our proposal. "I think Jen should lead this one," Dad announced during our Monday morning strategy session, just hours before the meeting. The room fell silent. Michael shot me a concerned glance. Dad, I've been working with the harbor team since inception, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the confusion washing over me. They're expecting me to present our proposal. And you'll be there, he assured me. But Jen has been developing some interesting financing models that might appeal to them. I think it's time she took the lead on a major project. I had poured my heart and soul into the growth of our family legacy, and every achievement felt like a testament to my dedication. The harbor project was the culmination of everything I'd been working toward. This decision, seemingly small but profoundly symbolic, set the stage for the painful revelation that would soon shake the very foundation of my life. The day my father made his announcement remains etched in my memory as one of profound betrayal and sorrow. It came 3 weeks after the harbor project presentation, which, despite my reservations, had gone reasonably well under Jen's leadership. I had swallowed my pride and supported her throughout, filling in details when developers asked technical questions and smoothing over moments of hesitation. That Tuesday morning began like any other. The September air carried the first hints of autumn as I walked from my Back Bay apartment to the office, stopping at my usual coffee shop on Newberry Street where Ellie, the barista, already had my order ready. "Extra shot today, Ms. Richardson?" she asked, noticing the dark circles under my eyes. "Make it 2, I replied with a tired smile. I had been up until 3 a.m. reviewing quarterly projections, trying to identify opportunities for the upcoming year. When I arrived at the office, Sarah intercepted me before I could reach my door. "Emergency board meeting at 10, she said, her usual composure slightly ruffled. "Your father called it last night. What's it about?" I asked, surprised. "We had just had our regular monthly meeting the previous week." "He didn't say," she answered. "But he's asked everyone to clear their calendars until noon." A knot formed in my stomach, the instinctive reaction of someone who has learned to read subtle signs of trouble. Board meetings were planned weeks in advance. Emergency sessions typically meant either crisis or opportunity. I spent the next 2 hours reviewing recent transactions and market movements, searching for anything that might explain the sudden gathering. Nothing stood out. Our position was strong, our recent deals successful, our client relationships solid. At precisely 10 o'clock, I entered the boardroom. The familiar long table of polished walnut gleamed under recessed lighting. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Boston Harbor, ironically, the same harbor that housed the development project that had marked the beginning of my unease. Dad sat at the head of the table, his expression unreadable. To his right was Tom Jenkins, who gave me a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Michael sat 3 chairs down, fidgeting with his pen, always a sign of his anxiety. Jen was at Dad's left, composed and immaculate in a navy suit that looked fresh from Neiman Marcus. The rest of the board filled in: Walter Phelps with his perpetual scowl, Diana Montgomery with her elegant silver hair, and the newer members who had joined as we expanded. 14 people in total, all looking expectantly at Dad. "Thank you all for rearranging your schedules," Dad began once everyone was seated. "I've brought you here today because I've made a decision about the future of Richardson Financial, and I wanted you all to hear it directly from me." My heart began to race. This sounded like succession planning, something we had discussed in vague terms, but never concretely. Given my track record and position as executive vice president, I had assumed the path was clear, but Dad's formal tone sent a wave of uncertainty through me. "As you know, this company has been my life's work," he continued. "What began as a small investment firm has grown beyond anything I imagined, particularly in recent years." He glanced at me with what I thought was pride. "The time has come for me to think about stepping back, not immediately, but over the next 2 years, and ensuring that Richardson Financial continues to thrive under new leadership." A hush fell over the room. This was it, the moment I had been working toward for 6 years. The culmination of countless late nights, sacrificed weekends, and relentless dedication. After careful consideration and many discussions with our senior advisors, Dad said, his voice steady, "I've decided that Jennifer will be appointed as Chief Operating Officer effective next month, with the intention that she will assume the role of CEO when I retire." The world seemed to stop. I felt as if I had been plunged underwater, Dad's next words muffled and distorted as blood rushed in my ears. I was vaguely aware of Jen's composed smile, of Michael's widened eyes, of Tom Jenkins looking down at his folded hands. Emily will continue in her role as Executive Vice President of Strategy, Dad was saying when my hearing cleared, focusing on the areas where she has shown such remarkable success. Michael will remain as Chief Marketing Officer, reporting directly to Jennifer. My sister, 5 years younger, with barely 2 years at the company, was being positioned to lead the organization I had helped build. The organization I had transformed from a regional player to a formidable presence across New England. The betrayal cut deep, not just professionally but personally. I believe this structure plays to everyone's strengths, Dad concluded, as if he were announcing nothing more consequential than a minor reorganization. Jennifer's holistic approach to business, combined with Emily's strategic brilliance and Michael's marketing expertise, will position Richardson Financial for continued success. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur. There were questions about timeline, about reporting structures, about how the news would be communicated to clients and employees. I remained silent, unable to trust my voice, afraid that if I opened my mouth, years of bottled emotions would pour out in a torrent I couldn't control. As the meeting concluded, board members approached Jen with congratulations. Michael caught my eye across the room, his expression a mixture of shock and sympathy. Diana Montgomery squeezed my arm as she passed, whispering, "This isn't right." Emily, the only acknowledgement that something profoundly unjust had occurred. I managed to maintain my composure until I reached my office, closing the door behind me before collapsing into my chair. The view of Boston Harbor, usually a source of inspiration, now seemed to mock me with its vastness and possibility. The shock was overwhelming. I had built the company with my own hands, steering it to heights previously deemed unattainable. Yet, in a single moment, it felt as though all the sacrifices, the sleepless nights, and the relentless pursuit of excellence were rendered invisible. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. "Em?" It was Michael, his concern evident as he entered without waiting for a response. "Are you okay? What do you think?" I replied, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm raging inside me. "It's wrong," he said simply, closing the door and taking the seat across from me. "Everyone knows it's wrong. Everyone except Dad, apparently." Michael ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit from childhood. "Did you have any idea this was coming?" "No," I admitted, though maybe I should have. The harbor project, the way he's been bringing Jen into strategic discussions. I trailed off, connecting dots that had been there all along. "What are you going to do?" It was the question I'd been asking myself since the announcement. What could I do? The company was still majority-owned by Dad. The board could advise, but not override. "I don't know yet," I said honestly. Michael leaned forward. "You know I'm with you, right? Whatever you decide." His loyalty brought the first real emotion to the surface, a lump in my throat that threatened to dissolve into tears. "I know," I managed to say. After Michael left, I sat alone as afternoon turned to evening, the harbor waters reflecting the changing colors of the sky. My phone buzzed repeatedly, messages from colleagues, from friends who had somehow already heard the news, from Mom asking me to call. I ignored them all. Around 8, when the office had emptied, there was another knock. This time it was Dad, his frame silhouetted against the hallway light. "May I come in?" he asked, uncharacteristically tentative. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He took the seat Michael had occupied hours earlier, looking somehow older than he had that morning. "I know this isn't what you expected," he began. "That's quite an understatement," I replied, my voice controlled but cold. "Emily, you're brilliant at strategy and innovation. The company wouldn't be where it is without you. But leadership requires different skills, a balanced approach, an ability to see beyond immediate gains to long-term sustainability. And you don't think I have those skills? After everything I've built here." Dad sighed. "You've built incredible things through sheer determination and intelligence. But sometimes at a cost, to relationships, to tradition, occasionally even to yourself. Jennifer has a collaborative style that I believe will best serve the company's future. In that instant, I questioned the fairness of tradition and the value of loyalty when it is not reciprocated. Everything I had done, the growth I had driven, the innovations I had championed, the countless hours I had dedicated, was being reframed as somehow insufficient, lacking in qualities my younger sister apparently possessed in abundance. So my reward for transforming your regional firm into a $150 million company is to report to my sister, who joined straight out of business school while I was already driving our expansion across New England? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. This isn't about reward, Emily. It's about what's best for Richardson Financial moving forward. No, I said, surprising myself with the clarity I suddenly felt. It's about what you want, Dad. It always has been. He looked stung, but I continued, years of unspoken feelings finding their voice. You wanted a traditional family business, so I helped build one beyond your wildest expectations. You wanted innovation without risk, so I created strategies that gave us both. You wanted your legacy secured, so I sacrificed everything else in my life to ensure it. I stood, needing the physical separation from the conversation that was shattering my world. But this decision isn't about the company's best interests. If it were, you'd look at results, not at some subjective assessment of leadership style. This is about your vision of family dynamics, not business acumen. Dad stood as well, his expression hardening. You've made your opinion clear. I hope in time you'll see the wisdom in this decision and support your sister as she has supported you. After he left, I remained standing at the window, watching the lights of boats moving across the harbor. The announcement not only shattered my trust, but also ignited a fire within me, a determination to prove that my vision was not only valid, but also indispensable. I knew that if I remained silent, my own identity and future would be defined by this injustice. As painful as this day had been, it was also clarifying. For the first time since joining Richardson Financial, I allowed myself to contemplate a future beyond its walls, a future where my worth wouldn't be determined by family tradition or my father's perception of leadership. In the quiet aftermath of that fateful announcement, I found myself at a crossroads. The following days at Richardson Financial were excruciating, maintaining a professional facade while feeling like an outsider in the company I had helped build. Colleagues walked on eggshells around me, conversations halting awkwardly when I entered rooms. News travels fast in Boston's financial district, and speculation about my next move had become everyone's favorite topic of discussion. I avoided the regular executive lunch at Morton's, opting instead for solitary walks along the Charles River. The familiar path from the financial district to the Esplanade became my refuge, a place to breathe and think away from pitying glances and whispered conversations. "You look terrible," said Caitlin bluntly when we met for drinks at the Oak Lawn Bar at the Fairmont. The plush surroundings and soft lighting couldn't hide my exhaustion. "Have you been sleeping at all?" "Not much," I admitted, sipping my gin and tonic. "My brain won't shut off." "What are you going to do? You can't just keep going to work and pretending everything's fine." That was the question everyone was asking, including myself. The betrayal from someone I had admired and trusted forced me to reconsider everything I thought I knew about family and legacy. My childhood home in Beacon Hill, once a symbol of comfort and belonging, now felt like hostile territory. I declined Sunday dinner for the first time in years, unable to face the new family dynamic. "I don't know yet," I told Caitlin, the same answer I'd given Michael. But the truth was, options were beginning to take shape in my mind, possibilities I hadn't allowed myself to consider before. My phone buzzed with a text from Tom Jenkins. "Coffee tomorrow?" My treat. The usual place. Tom had been uncharacteristically quiet since the announcement. I wondered if he'd known in advance, if he'd been part of Dad's careful consideration and many discussions with senior advisors. The next morning, I arrived at Thinking Cup on Tremont Street to find Tom already waiting, 2 coffees on the table. The cafe was busy with the morning rush, providing a buffer of anonymity and noise. "Thanks for coming," he said as I slid into the seat across from him. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," I admitted. "Were you part of this, Tom?" He shook his head emphatically. "Absolutely not. Robert didn't consult me. I was as shocked as you were." Some of the tension in my shoulders eased. Tom had been my advocate from the beginning, Losing his support would have been another blow I wasn't sure I could withstand. "It's wrong, Emily," he continued, leaning forward. "What you've done for this company, the vision, the growth, it deserves recognition, not this." I took a sip of my coffee, buying time before responding. "Dad seems to think Jen's collaborative style is what the company needs." Tom snorted. "That's his justification? The company tripled in value under your leadership. Your style seems to be working just fine." His indignation was validating, but it didn't change the reality. "What would you do if you were me?" Tom studied me over the rim of his cup. "I can't answer that, but I can tell you that several key clients have reached out to me directly, concerned about what this means for their portfolios. Your reputation in the industry is stellar, Emily. Your personal brand extends beyond Richardson Financial." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that your options are broader than you might think." As I walked back to the office, Tom's words echoed in my mind. My personal brand. My reputation. Assets that couldn't be taken away, regardless of Dad's decisions. The next few weeks passed in a blur of forced normalcy. Jen began transitioning into her new role, scheduling one-on-ones with department heads and key clients. Dad announced the succession plan more broadly, carefully framing it as a strategic decision to leverage complementary talents within the family. The press release described me as continuing to provide strategic leadership in areas of expansion and innovation, a diplomatic way of saying I'd been sidelined. Michael maintained his role as buffer, keeping me informed of conversations I was no longer privy to. Jen's scheduling a strategic planning retreat at the Cape House, he told me during a quick lunch at Sweet Green. Just executives and board members. The same retreat I organized last year? The annual strategy session at our family's Chatham summer home had been my initiative, a way to combine relaxation with focused planning. "Yeah," he said, looking uncomfortable. Dad suggested she continue the tradition. Each new development reinforced what Tom had implied. My future at Richardson Financial would be increasingly constrained, my innovations attributed to others, my expertise leveraged but not acknowledged. As I grappled with my emotions, I realized that I had two choices: succumb to the weight of disappointment or channel it into creating something greater. The answer came unexpectedly during a client dinner at Menton in the Seaport District. Lawrence Chin, founder of a successful tech startup we'd helped take public, was in town from San Francisco. We'd developed a friendly relationship over the years, his irreverent approach to business refreshing after the stuffiness of traditional finance. "I heard about the shakeup," he said bluntly as we waited for our entrees. "Complete bullshit, if you ask me." I smiled despite myself. Lawrence had never been one for subtlety. "It's complicated. Family businesses often are." "Sure, but talent shouldn't be sidelined because of family politics." He took a sip of his wine. "You know, I've been thinking about launching a venture capital fund focused on female entrepreneurs in fintech. The old boys network in Silicon Valley is finally facing some disruption, but access to capital is still the biggest hurdle for women-led startups." "That's definitely needed," I agreed. "The data on funding disparities is staggering. What I need is someone who understands both finance and innovation, who can spot potential and help these founders navigate growth." He fixed me with a direct look. "Someone like you, Emily." I nearly choked on my wine. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm floating an idea," he replied with a shrug. "You've been at Richardson Financial your whole career. Maybe it's time to see what else is out there." The conversation shifted to other topics, but Lawrence's suggestion lingered. That night, I couldn't sleep. Instead, I sat at my apartment window overlooking Commonwealth Avenue, watching occasional cars pass through the quiet streets of Back Bay. I chose to channel my disappointment into creating something greater. The decision to leave the family business was not made lightly, but it was a necessary step in reclaiming my self-worth and passion. I spent countless nights mapping out a new future, a future where my vision could flourish without the constraints of an unfair inheritance. My apartment became command central for what I started thinking of as Operation Phoenix. I converted my dining room into a makeshift office, covering the walls with notes, market analyses, and competitive research. I called in favors for meetings with potential investors, careful to schedule them during lunch hours or after work to avoid raising suspicions at Richardson Financial. Lawrence introduced me to Sophia Patel, a venture capitalist who had broken away from a major firm to start her own fund. Over dinner at Duave, she listened intently as I outlined my preliminary thoughts. "The market needs what you're describing," she said when I finished. "A boutique firm that combines innovative investment strategies with the personal touch that gets lost at larger institutions. But starting from scratch in this industry, it's not for the faint of heart." "I'm not faint of heart," I replied with newfound conviction. "No," she agreed, studying me with interest. "You're certainly not. Send me a formal business plan and we'll talk numbers." Every setback became a lesson, every tear a reminder of my potential. I worked late into the night, refining my business model, identifying my target market, calculating startup costs and projected returns. During the day, I maintained my role at Richardson Financial, managing strategic initiatives with professional detachment while planning my exit. I began assembling a team of like-minded individuals who shared my hunger for innovation and excellence. Tom Jenkins was the first person I approached, meeting him for dinner at a discreet restaurant in Cambridge, far from the usual financial district haunts. "I'm leaving," I told him after we ordered, not seeing any point in dancing around the subject. "I'm starting my own firm." Tom nodded slowly, as if he'd been expecting this. "When?" 3 months. "I need time to finalize investors and secure office space." I hesitated, then added, "I'd like you to come with me." His eyebrows shot up. "Leave Richardson?" "I've been there almost 20 years, Emily. I know it's a lot to ask, but I need someone I trust, someone who understands the industry inside and out." I slid a folder across the table. "This is my business plan, including compensation packages for senior leadership." Tom took the folder but didn't open it. "Does your father know?" "Not yet. No one does, except you and a couple of potential investors." I met his gaze steadily. "I'm not asking for an answer tonight. Just consider it." He nodded, tucking the folder into his briefcase. "I will. Carefully." With every conversation, every late-night strategy session, the seed of my new venture grew into a formidable plan that promised not only success, but also redemption. I called it Beacon Capital Partners, a nod to Beacon Hill where I'd grown up, but also a symbol of guidance and light in the often murky waters of finance. Michael was the hardest to tell. We met at his condo in Charlestown, overlooking the harbor and the USS Constitution, Old Ironsides, a fitting backdrop for a conversation that would test our own fortitude. "You're actually doing it," he said, stunned, after I laid out my plans. "You're leaving." "I have to, Mike. You understand that, right?" He paced his living room, processing. "Dad will see it as a betrayal." "Dad betrayed me first," I replied, the words still bitter on my tongue. "Besides, this isn't about him. It's about building something that's truly mine." "What about me?" he asked quietly. "Where does this leave me?" It was the question I'd been dreading. "That depends on you. There's a place for you at Beacon if you want it. Chief Marketing Officer, same as now but with equity." I swallowed hard. "But I know it's complicated. You have to decide what's right for you." He nodded, gazing out at the harbor. "I need time to think." "I understand," I said, and I truly did. The decision I had made would ripple through all our lives, changing family dynamics forever. But for the first time since Dad's announcement, I felt a sense of purpose and control returning. The path ahead would be difficult, but it was mine to forge. With my heart set on forging a new path, I embarked on the arduous journey of establishing my own company. The day I handed Dad my resignation letter was surreal, his office suddenly feeling foreign despite the countless hours I'd spent there discussing strategy and growth. "Is this some kind of negotiation tactic?" he asked, scanning the letter with narrowed eyes, his reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. "No," I replied simply. "It's a resignation. Effective in 30 days, as per my contract." Dad set the letter down deliberately, removing his glasses with measured control. "Where are you going?" "Mitchell & Reed has been trying to poach you for years. Is that it?" "I'm not joining another firm." I met his gaze steadily. "I'm starting my own." The silence that followed was deafening. Outside his office, I could hear the normal bustle of Richardson Financial, phones ringing, keyboards clicking, the occasional burst of laughter. Inside, the air was thick with unspoken accusations. "You would compete against your own family?" Dad finally asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "I'm creating something different," I explained, maintaining my composure. Beacon Capital will focus on areas Richardson Financial has been hesitant to explore: sustainable investments, fintech partnerships, alternative assets. Beacon Capital, he repeated, testing the name. "You've clearly been planning this for some time." I nodded, not seeing any point in denying it. "Since the day you made Jen your successor." His jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake, Emily. The resources you have here, the established client base, the Richardson name, you're throwing it all away because of wounded pride." "No," I countered, surprising myself with my calm. "I'm building something new because I believe in my vision. The same way you believed in yours when you started this company." The news spread through the office like wildfire. By lunchtime, my phone was buzzing nonstop with texts from colleagues expressing everything from shock to support. Jen approached me in the hallway, her expression unreadable. "Can we talk?" she asked, gesturing to a nearby conference room. I followed her in, curious despite my resentment. She closed the door and turned to face me, her composed exterior showing the first cracks I'd seen since Dad's announcement. "Why didn't you tell me you were planning to leave?" I raised an eyebrow. "Would it have made a difference?" "Of course it would," she insisted. "Dad might have reconsidered the succession plan if he knew you were serious about leaving. So this is about saving the company from losing me, not about what would have been fair from the beginning." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Jen sighed, pushing her hair back in a gesture so reminiscent of Mom that it momentarily threw me. "I know you think I orchestrated this somehow, that I've been plotting to take your place. But that's not true, Em. Dad came to me with the plan fully formed. I didn't ask for this. But you accepted it," I pointed out. "Yes," she admitted. "I did. Because I believe I can lead this company effectively, even though I would have preferred to do it with you by my side." She hesitated. "It doesn't have to be this way, you know. We could find a compromise." I studied my sister, trying to see past years of complicated family dynamics to the person she'd become. There was sincerity in her eyes, and perhaps a hint of fear at the prospect of leading without me. For a brief moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. "It's too late for compromises, Jen," I said finally. "I need to do this. For myself." The early days of establishing Beacon Capital were filled with challenges that tested my resolve. Finding suitable office space was the first hurdle. Boston's commercial real estate market was notoriously tight, and premium locations commanded exorbitant rents. After weeks of searching, I secured a modest suite in a renovated warehouse in the Seaport district. The space had character: exposed brick walls, large windows overlooking the harbor, high ceilings that made the modest square footage feel more expansive. Financial uncertainties loomed large, despite the commitments I'd secured from initial investors. Sophia Patel had come through with seed funding, but it was a fraction of what I'd been accustomed to working with at Richardson Financial. Every decision, from office furniture to software systems, required careful consideration of cost versus necessity. "We don't need the Bloomberg terminal subscription in every office," I told Grace Chin, my newly hired operations director, as we reviewed the budget. "Let's start with 2 shared terminals and reassess in 6 months." Grace, who had left a secure position at Fidelity to join my startup, nodded in agreement. "I've identified some alternatives for market research that could save us about $30,000 annually. They're not as comprehensive, but they'll get us started." Market skepticism was perhaps the most persistent challenge. Boston's financial community was tightly knit, with long-standing relationships and established hierarchies. The daughter breaking away from the Richardson empire made for interesting gossip, but many questioned whether Beacon Capital could establish legitimate credibility without the family name backing it. Lawrence Chun proved invaluable during this period, not just as an investor, but as a connector to potential clients who valued innovation over tradition. Emily Richardson is the brains behind Richardson Financial's most successful initiatives of the past decade, he would tell his network. Now she's building something even more revolutionary. Despite these endorsements, many doors remained closed. Old guard wealth managers viewed us with suspicion, reluctant to entrust their clients' assets to an unproven entity. Each rejection reinforced my determination to succeed on my own terms. The relentless pressure of proving my worth kept me working 18-hour days. My apartment became a secondary office, my dining table permanently covered with documents and financial models. Sleep became a luxury I rarely afforded myself, and meals were often whatever could be delivered to the office. Yet, every obstacle reinforced my determination to succeed on my own terms. I invested everything I had into creating a business that embodied my ideals and vision. The Beacon Capital logo, a stylized lighthouse beam cutting through waves, adorned our modest reception area, a daily reminder of our mission to guide clients through unpredictable financial waters with innovative approaches. From recruiting a diverse team of experts to adopting innovative practices that disrupted the status quo, every decision was fueled by the need to build something extraordinary. My first key hire after Grace was Raj Patel, a brilliant quantitative analyst I'd tried to recruit to Richardson Financial, but who had been deemed too unconventional by the old guard there. "Your father's loss is my gain," Raj said with a grin when he accepted my offer. "I've been following your career for years. The sustainable investment platform you developed was revolutionary." I also brought on Marcus Williams, a compliance officer with experience at both large institutions and startups, who understood how to navigate regulatory requirements without stifling innovation. His methodical approach balanced my sometimes impulsive creativity, creating a partnership that would prove crucial in Beacon's early days. To my surprise and delight, Tom Jenkins decided to join us as Chief Investment Officer, bringing decades of experience and instant credibility to our fledgling operation. "I've had a good run at Richardson," he told me when he accepted the position. "But I want to be part of building something new at this stage in my career." His decision sent shockwaves through Boston's financial community and caused the first real rift between Dad and me. "You've taken my clients, now you're taking my people," Dad accused during a tense phone call. "Is there anything of mine you don't intend to steal?" "I didn't steal Tom," I replied, trying to keep my voice level. "He made his own choice." Michael, after weeks of deliberation, ultimately decided to stay at Richardson Financial. "I can't do it, he explained over coffee. "It's not that I don't believe in you, I do. But I think I can do more good here, helping Dad and Gen see beyond their own perspectives." Though disappointed, I respected his decision. "You'll always have a place at Beacon if you change your mind," I assured him. The excitement of carving out my own identity kept me going, even when the odds seemed stacked against me. Our first client was a former Richardson investor who had been vocal about his disappointment in the direction the company had taken after I stepped down. Harold Winters, a tech entrepreneur who had sold his company for millions, entrusted Beacon with a modest portion of his portfolio, $5 million, a small sum by Richardson standards, but a significant vote of confidence for us. "I'm investing in you, Emily," he said during our initial meeting. "Not just your strategies, but your vision." His faith was the first of many small victories that validated my decision. A successful pitch to a foundation looking for sustainable investment options brought in another $10 million. A referral from Lawrence led to a partnership with a women-led tech incubator, positioning Beacon as a financial advisor for promising startups. During this phase, I learned that true leadership is forged in the crucible of adversity. When we lost a major potential client to a more established firm, I gathered the team in our small conference room. "Today's disappointment doesn't define us," I told them, hiding my own frustration. "It's what we learn from it that matters." We dissected the pitch, identifying weaknesses in our approach and opportunities for improvement. The next day, we secured a different client with a more refined strategy, turning potential defeat into a learning experience. I celebrated small victories with my new team and learned from every failure. After 6 months, we moved from our temporary space to more permanent offices in the same building, expanding to accommodate our growing team. The day we hung the Beacon Capital sign on our door was a moment of quiet triumph, tangible proof that we were not just surviving, but beginning to thrive. The journey was a blend of relentless work, profound self-discovery, and the constant challenge of transforming ambition into reality. There were moments of doubt, usually in the pre-dawn hours when I'd wake with anxiety about cash flow projections or client retention. But these were balanced by exhilarating breakthroughs, a successful investment strategy that outperformed market benchmarks, recognition in industry publications, a growing waitlist of potential clients attracted by our innovative approach. One particularly memorable milestone came when we hired our 10th employee, officially outgrowing our original space. "We need to take over the adjacent suite," Grace informed me, spreadsheets in hand. "Our projections show we'll need to accommodate at least 5 more people by quarter's end." The expansion represented more than additional square footage. It was tangible evidence that Beacon Capital was establishing itself as a legitimate contender in Boston's financial landscape. With each passing day, my new company began to take shape, promising a future that was entirely my own. The most significant validation, however, came unexpectedly. A year after founding Beacon, I received an invitation to speak at the annual New England Financial Innovation Summit, an honor typically reserved for established industry leaders. The topic was disrupting tradition, new models for wealth management, and my name was listed alongside CEOs from companies 10 times our size. As I prepared my presentation in my office overlooking Boston Harbor, I realized how far I'd come from that devastating day in the Richardson Financial boardroom. The journey had been more difficult than I could have imagined, with financial pressures, sleepless nights, and constant scrutiny from an industry resistant to change. But sitting there, watching the same harbor that had been my view from Richardson Financial, yet seeing it from an entirely different perspective, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride. Beacon Capital wasn't just surviving, it was defining a new approach to financial services that honored my vision without compromising my values. The future remained uncertain, with challenges still to overcome and goals yet to achieve. But for the first time since leaving the family business, I felt truly at peace with my decision. Beacon Capital was becoming exactly what I had envisioned, not a replica of Richardson Financial, but something uniquely mine, built from the ground up with purpose and passion. Today, as I reflect on the tumultuous journey from betrayal to triumph, I feel a deep sense of fulfillment and redemption. 5 years have passed since I founded Beacon Capital, and the view from my corner office in our new headquarters on State Street, ironically just 3 blocks from Richardson Financial, offers both literal and metaphorical perspective on how far we've come. The Boston skyline stretches before me, familiar yet always changing, much like my own path. The harbor that once represented my family's legacy now symbolizes the boundless possibilities I've created for myself and my team. Beacon Capital has not only survived, but thrived beyond my most ambitious projections, growing from a scrappy startup with something to prove into a respected firm managing over $2 billion in assets. The Financial Times is on line 1, announces Zoe, my executive assistant. They want to confirm some details for the profile they're running next week. I smile at the irony. 5 years ago, I struggled to get local business publications to take Beacon seriously. Now, international financial media regularly feature our innovative approaches and consistent performance. Last month's cover of Boston Business Journal dubbed me Finance's foremost disruptor, highlighting how Beacon's sustainable investment platforms had outperformed traditional portfolios by significant margins during market volatility. "Tell them I'll call back after my meeting with the Mountain Creek team," I reply, gathering materials for my next appointment. Mountain Creek Ventures represents exactly the kind of client that has fueled Beacon's growth, forward-thinking entrepreneurs who value both financial returns and positive impact. Their renewable energy projects align perfectly with our ESG-focused investment strategies, a specialization that has become Beacon's calling card in an increasingly competitive marketplace. The emotional scars of the past have healed, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose and a clear vision for the future. The pain of Dad's decision now feels distant, a necessary catalyst for the transformation that followed. We've established a cordial, if somewhat formal relationship, occasionally running into each other at industry events or family gatherings that Mom insists we both attend. "You've built something impressive," he acknowledged at Michael's wedding last summer, the closest he's come to admitting he might have been wrong. "Your grandfather would have been proud." Coming from Dad, it was high praise indeed, though I no longer measure my worth by his approval. The validation I once desperately sought from him has been superseded by the satisfaction of building something authentic and impactful. Jen still leads Richardson Financial, maintaining its reputation for stability and tradition. Under her leadership, the firm has continued to grow, though at a more conservative pace than during my tenure. We've developed an unlikely truce over the years, finding ways to support each other professionally without directly competing for the same clients. "The market's big enough for both Richardson approaches," she remarked during a rare lunch together at Oak Lawn Bar. Traditional and innovative. Michael has thrived as Chief Marketing Officer at Richardson, though he often jokes about being our inside man, keeping me informed of family business developments. His children, my niece and nephew, are frequent visitors to my Back Bay apartment, unaware of the complex history that once divided their mother and aunt. I stand as a living reminder that true success is not measured by titles or inherited legacies, but by the courage to pursue one's dreams despite overwhelming odds. When Sophia Patel introduced me at last year's Women in Finance Leadership Awards, she highlighted this aspect of my journey. Emily Richardson could have remained in the comfortable shadow of her family's name. Instead, she chose the harder path, building something new, something entirely her own. In doing so, she's not only created a thriving business, but has redefined what's possible for women entrepreneurs in financial services. The standing ovation that followed her words emphasized how my personal journey had transcended individual achievement to become a beacon for others facing similar challenges. Beacon Capital's success hasn't come without struggles. Our second year nearly derailed when a global market correction wiped out gains across our portfolios. Several key clients panicked, threatening to withdraw their investments at the worst possible moment. I remember gathering our now expanded team in the conference room, everyone's faces tight with anxiety. "This is where we prove our value," I told them. "Not when markets are rising and everyone looks smart, but when they're falling and true expertise matters." Tom Jenkins, whose decision to join Beacon had lent us crucial credibility in those early days, backed my steady approach. "Emily's right," he affirmed. "I've weathered 5 major corrections in my career. This is when clients need guidance, not abandonment." Together, we developed personalized communication strategies for each client, providing transparency about losses while contextualizing them within longer-term investment horizons. We offered adjusted strategies without abandoning core principles, demonstrating the responsiveness that larger institutions often lack during crises. Not only did we retain most clients through that turbulent period, but our reputation for steady leadership during volatility attracted new ones. When markets eventually recovered, our portfolios rebounded more strongly than many competitors, validating our approach and cementing client loyalty. Each milestone achieved is a victory over the injustice that once threatened to define me. The day we hired our 50th employee. Our expansion to a second office in New York. The launch of the Beacon Foundation, which funds financial literacy programs for underserved communities across New England. Each success has built upon the last, creating a legacy that reflects my values rather than someone else's expectations. "Your 2 o'clock is here," Zoe announces, interrupting my reflection. The Mountain Creek team arrived early. I gather my materials and straighten my jacket, ready to focus on the present rather than the past. Before heading to the conference room, I pause at the window for one last glance at the harbor. A small sailboat cuts through the water, its white sail bright against the blue. The sight reminds me of something Tom said during those difficult early days. Building a company is like sailing. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. I've been adjusting my sails for 5 years now, navigating through storms and calm waters alike. The journey hasn't been easy, but it has been unquestionably mine. The conference room buzzes with energy as I enter. Grace, now our Chief Operating Officer, has already welcomed the Mountain Creek team and initiated introductions. Raj, who heads our quantitative analysis department, is explaining our proprietary modeling system that has consistently identified emerging opportunities in the renewable energy sector. Emily, exclaims Danielle Park, Mountain Creek's founder. We've been looking forward to this meeting for weeks. Your team's preliminary analysis of our expansion plans is unlike anything other firms offered. As I shake hands around the table, I'm struck by how different this feels from my days at Richardson Financial. There, I was always the founder's daughter first, my achievements viewed through the lens of family connection. Here, I'm valued for my vision and leadership, my success earned rather than inherited. Looking back, I realized that my journey was never just about business. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of overcoming betrayal and building a legacy of my own. The painful catalyst that drove me from Richardson Financial ultimately freed me to create something more aligned with my true self. After the Mountain Creek meeting concludes successfully, I return to my office to find an unexpected visitor waiting, Michael, casually browsing the collection of awards and press clippings displayed on my credenza. "Impressive wall of fame you've got here," he remarks with a grin. "Though you're missing the latest. Did you see you made Boston Magazine's Power 50 list? Ranked 12 spots above Dad, which I'm sure he's thrilled about." I laugh, genuinely amused by the competitive metric. I'm sure he's devastated. "What brings you crosstown in the middle of a workday? Everything okay?" Michael's expression turns more serious. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something important. Dad's thinking about retirement, for real this time." "Oh!" I maintain a neutral tone, though the news sends an unexpected ripple of emotion through me. Jen must be pleased. "That's just it," Michael continues, taking a seat across from my desk. "Things aren't exactly smooth at Richardson these days. The Parker acquisition hasn't performed as expected, and the board is getting restless." I raise an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. The Parker Group had been Dad's pet project, a traditional wealth management firm with an aging client base that I had advised against acquiring during my final days at Richardson. And this concerns me because... Michael leans forward. "Because there's talk of looking outside for new leadership. Some board members have even suggested exploring a merger." He pauses, watching my reaction. "With Beacon." The suggestion is so unexpected that I laugh out loud. "You can't be serious. After everything that happened." "Never more serious," Michael insists. "The financial landscape is changing, M. Richardson has the established client base and tradition, but Beacon has the innovation and growth potential. Together we'd be quite the powerhouse," I finish his thought, the strategic possibilities automatically clicking into place despite my personal reservations. "Just think about it," Michael says, standing to leave. "This could be a full-circle moment, not you returning to the fold, but creating something new together. On your terms this time." After he leaves, I turn back to the window, processing this unexpected development. The harbor continues its eternal rhythm, waves coming in, going out, constantly changing yet somehow always the same. With a spirit that is unyielding and a heart that continues to beat with passion, I now lead a company that reflects everything I believe in: innovation, integrity, and the relentless pursuit of excellence. Whatever decision I make about Michael's surprising proposal, it will be from a position of strength and self-knowledge that I lacked 5 years ago. The journey from Richardson Financial to Beacon Capital transformed not just my career, but my understanding of success and fulfillment. What began as a reaction to betrayal evolved into a positive vision of what financial services could be: more inclusive, more innovative, more aligned with broader societal needs. As the afternoon sun casts long shadows across Boston Harbor, I find myself grateful for the painful catalyst that launched this journey. Without that moment of profound injustice, I might never have discovered the depths of my own resilience or the heights I could reach when freed from the constraints of others' expectations. I open my laptop and begin drafting notes about the potential merger, not yet ready to share the idea with my team, but allowing myself to explore the strategic implications. Whatever the future holds, whether Beacon continues as an independent force or evolves into something new through partnership with Richardson, I face it with confidence and clarity. The lighthouse in Beacon's logo was chosen deliberately, a symbol of guidance through rough waters, of illumination in darkness. In building this company, I've become my own beacon, lighting the way not just for myself, but for others navigating similar challenges. I close my laptop as evening approaches, deciding that strategic considerations can wait until tomorrow. Tonight calls for celebration of how far we've come. I text Tom, Grace, Raj, and other members of my leadership team. Drinks at Eastern Standard, 7 p.m. 5 years of Beacon, and just getting started. As I gather my things to leave, I pause at the door and look back at the office I've created. Not an imitation of Dad's walnut-paneled domain, but a space that reflects my own aesthetic and values. Modern yet warm, innovative yet approachable. 5 years ago, standing shell-shocked in the Richardson Financial boardroom after Dad's announcement, I could never have imagined the journey ahead. The path from betrayal to triumph has been arduous but transformative, each challenge strengthening my resolve and clarifying my purpose. Whatever comes next, whether expanding Beacon's independent vision or reimagining the Richardson legacy through merger, I face it not as the wounded daughter seeking validation, but as a leader secure in her own accomplishments. And that, perhaps, is the greatest triumph of all.